On October 20th, 2024, Pastor Robert Matthews, a beloved community leader and senior pastor at Joy Tabernacle Full Gospel Church, was fatally shot by his own daughter. His wife, Twinetta Matthews, was also injured in the attack, but she is expected to survive. This story has stunned not just the local community, but everyone who knew Pastor Matthews as a man of God, a loving husband, father, and friend. But the question that lingers is why? How could a tragedy like this happen within a family that seemed so deeply rooted in faith and love? Stay with me, because as we unravel this heartbreaking story, we'll explore not only the events leading up to the tragedy, but also the greater spiritual questions it raises about faith, forgiveness, and healing.
Hi, this is Pastor Robert A. Matthews. I serve as pastor at Joy Tabernacle Full Gospel Church, located at 510 South Ann Street, in the city of Mobile, Alabama.
So Robert Matthews wasn't just any pastor. This guy was the heart of his church, a family man, deeply involved in the community. If you showed up to church looking for hope, Robert Matthews was the kind of guy who'd deliver. Joy Tabernacle Full Gospel Church thrived under his leadership. His wife, Twinetta Matthews, stood right by his side, and together they raised a family built on faith. People knew the Matthews family as kind, loving, and faithful. They were what you might call a picture-perfect example of how faith can guide a family through life's ups and downs. So, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. Now here's where things take a dark and unexpected turn. On the night of October 20th, police get a call about a shooting at the Matthews family home. By the time officers arrive, they discover that both Robert and Twinetta had been shot. And here's the kicker. The person who pulled the trigger? Their own daughter, Charity Alice Matthews. Yeah, you heard that right. Their 36-year-old daughter shot them. Let that sink in for a second. The guy who dedicated his life to his family and faith was gunned down by his own child. Now, unfortunately, Pastor Robert Matthews didn't make it. He died from his injuries at the scene. His wife, Twinetta, was rushed to the hospital, and thank God she's expected to survive. But what would drive someone to do something like this? That's what investigators are still trying to figure out. But wait, it gets even crazier. Turns out this wasn't Charity's first violent incident. Nope. The day before the shooting, this lady was out of control. First, she fired shots at her brother's car, though thankfully, no one got hurt. But she didn't stop there. She then went and tracked down the father of one of her children and shot him too. We still don't know how badly he was injured, but let's just say Charity was on a violent spree. And after shooting both her parents, what did she do next? She grabbed her two young kids and took off. Police later found her hiding out at a Marriott hotel the next day and arrested her. According to the police, mental health issues might have been at play here. The district attorney, Keith Blackwood, said they're already evaluating Charity's mental state to see if she's even fit to stand trial. And let me tell you, if she's found guilty, she could be looking at capital murder charges. And that means she'd be eligible for the death penalty. Yep, Alabama doesn't mess around when it comes to this stuff. But here's what I don't get. If there were signs of mental health struggles, how did she even have access to a gun? I mean, shouldn't someone in the family have noticed something was off? It makes you wonder, was this avoidable? Could something have been done to stop this tragedy? Now here's the big question. Was Charity's attack driven by a mental health crisis, or was there something much deeper, maybe even planned? If it was purely mental illness, it makes you wonder, what went wrong? And if this was planned, what could possibly have pushed someone to unalive their own father? A man known for his kindness, faith, and leadership. A close family friend, Shaven Buchanan, spoke about Charity, describing her as someone full of love. Buchanan added that Charity had clearly been through a lot in her life, though she didn't elaborate on what those struggles were. And honestly, that only makes the story more unsettling. What could have been so painful or traumatic that this tragedy was the outcome?
I know she carried love in her heart. I know that she's seen a lot, been through a lot, just from personal conversations that I will not share. There just are no words. You know, I love her and I'm praying for her as well. We are a family that is strong believers and know the power of God. And in Mama Net's voice, all is well.
Charity Matthews pleaded not guilty today in court. Fox News reporter Ariel Mallory joins me now. And Ariel, you spoke with someone speaking, I should say, on behalf of the Matthews family. This has been extremely difficult, they say.
Yeah, it really has, Shelby. And family members tell me that's why they can't speak right now, because it is just too difficult. And they describe this whole experience as a living nightmare. But there is a good update to share. I'm told that the mother, Twinetta Matthews, is doing well as she recovers in the hospital. And we went by Pastor Matthews' church today, and I'm told he was an outstanding leader, a man of God and husband. And right now, the family is relying on their faith to get through this.
It leaves us with some haunting questions. What happened to Charity in the past that no one knew about? Was there something deeper that built up over time? Resentment, unresolved trauma, or some family issue hidden behind the surface? Or was this the result of mental illness reaching a breaking point? Right now, we just don't know, and that layer of mystery makes the entire situation even more tragic. But in the midst of all this, we have lost a man of God, a husband, a father, a pastor, and a teacher. Someone who spent his life serving others and spreading hope through faith. Robert Matthews wasn't just a preacher, he was a shepherd to his flock, guiding people through their darkest days. One prayer, one conversation, one sermon at a time. He poured himself into the Joy Tabernacle Full Gospel Church and the community around it, always showing up when people needed him, whether to comfort a grieving family, counsel someone through personal struggles, or offer a word of encouragement on Sunday morning. For him, ministry wasn't a job, it was a calling. Robert's kindness, love, and faithfulness were felt by everyone who knew him. His wife, Twinetta, stood faithfully by his side as they built a life rooted in faith and family. Together, they raised their children and poured their hearts into serving the Lord. He was a man who believed in second chances, in healing, and in redemption. But now, in the most tragic way imaginable, the man who dedicated his life to healing others is no longer here. He didn't just leave behind a grieving family, he left a church and a community searching for answers. It's a loss that no one saw coming, the kind of pain that makes you stop and ask, how could something like this happen?
That's a lesson for us today. Even though we may not understand why God has allowed it, His thoughts are much higher than ours. He has a purpose to bring us to a higher level of faith and trust in Him as He did Job. My prayer is that you will take this time not to curse God and die, but you will take this time to draw nearer to God, because He has promised that if you draw near to Him, He will draw near to you. And I pray that you find an intimate relationship with God through our Lord Jesus Christ during this time of affliction as you trust God through it all.
It's hard to wrap your mind around the idea that the person responsible for his death was his own daughter, someone he loved, someone he raised. The weight of that alone is unimaginable. How do you reconcile that? How do you come to terms with losing a man of faith to an act of violence within his own family? It leaves a hole not just in his family's life, but also in the hearts of everyone he touched. In his final moments, Robert likely didn't have the answers. He couldn't have known why this was happening, and that's part of what makes this so tragic. But what we do know is that Robert Matthews lived what he preached. His life was a testament to faith, perseverance, and love, even in the hardest times. He reminded his congregation, time and time again, that God's presence is still with us, even when life feels unbearable. And though Robert is no longer with us, his legacy of faith and kindness will continue to shine through the people he led and loved.